So this is the continuation of the previous video, why men lack personal integrity and moral accountability. So I was talking about what you should do when you encounter these men who lack personal integrity and moral accountability, right? And the first thing is stop explaining yourself, right? Stop repeating yourself over and over, because that will teach him that you're gonna just tolerate this behavior, right? You're having patience and trying to teach integrity, trying to teach a man to be accountable, and you just staying there is just telling him that you're going to tolerate this type of behavior, right? So you stop explaining yourself. The next thing you could do is just believe the patterns that you're seeing. Don't believe the apologies, because men apologize and they do the same behavior the next day, right? They may not even feel guilty or shame about their behavior. They may feel no remorse. So that's how they could apologize and don't change their behavior. So apology without change is just useless. And the next thing you could do when you meet men who lack integrity and personal and moral accountability is you enforce consequences, right? For example, when you realize this, you have less, you give them less access to you. You remove yourself from the situation. Basically, that's what I'm saying. You reduce emotional availability, you create boundaries, and you walk away from the drama, right? Some men, they only respond to loss when they have to face consequences. Then they might want to try and change their behavior, right? Most men, they don't change. So the best thing you could do is just walk away when you see these patterns. You stop explaining yourself and you walk away, right? Don't try to, next thing you could do is not try to awaken his conscience, right? Teaching empathy at this stage, like as a grown man, is not a good idea to teach a man empathy, trying to install morals in him, trying to trigger his awareness. That will drain you and that will make you feel exhausted. So don't abandon yourself trying to fix him, waiting for change. The best thing you could do is leave, and I'm telling you, it's not worth it. So men who lack integrity usually have a distorted sense of guilt and shame, right? They lack the capacity to feel guilty and to feel shame. So we actually dive in deep into this topic. That is why I'm talking about all of these things. They have limited emotional empathy. They lack empathy. They struggle to understand other people's feelings, emotions. They don't really pick up on emotions, right? They had early conditioning, most likely where their parents probably were absent, and there was no values instilled, like being accountable for your actions, right? They could also have experience having chronic entitlement, right? Or they grew up where they were very self-centered in a sense because of how they were raised, right? So it's either their parents was absent, or their parents could be there, but the values of being responsible and taking accountability for your actions, they were not instilled, and it was absent. Or they have some chronic entitlement, which most of the time comes from their mother. Some mothers treat their sons like they're worshiping their sons, or they treat their son like he's a king, and they get this entitlement thing going on. So they start to become self-centered, and that is how they lack the capacity to feel guilt or to feel shame, and they lack empathy, right? So these men, they justify their actions instead of reflect on their actions. They will feel irritated and annoyed when you confront them on their bad behavior. So instead of feeling remorse and you feel guilty, or they feel shame, they just feel annoyed that you're bringing this up. These emotions does not activate internally for them. So like I'm talking about feeling guilty and feeling shame, it's not activated within them. So when you complain, it's like an inconvenience, right? So some men, yes, they understand right from wrong, but they choose to do wrong. They have always been doing wrong for most of their life, and it's a capacity issue. They lack the capacity to feel guilty. They lack the capacity to feel shame. So that's one thing that's going on with them, lacking capacity to feel guilty and shame, right? Yes, some of them, they would feel guilty for a brief moment, but then they override it, right? So I'm talking about this started sense of feeling guilty and feeling shame. Yes, some may not feel shame, they may not feel guilty, but some will feel it. They may feel a flicker of shame and guilt, but then they just silence it. They rationalize their behavior. They might tell you, oh, it's not that bad. If you complain about something, they might just shift the blame to you and say you're too sensitive, you're overthinking, you're overreacting. And they just minimize your feelings, they minimize your experience, they minimize your concern, and they just justify their bad behavior, right? That guilty feeling that they have, it's uncomfortable, and they just shut it down. So that is what another thing that's going on. They may also care more about how they look, their self-image, and they don't really care about honesty, they just care about how they look. So basically, they're not motivated to develop personal integrity, morals, and values. They are more focused on being in control of the situation and looking powerful and just escaping the consequences of their actions. And they don't want to deal with you, they don't want to deal with your emotions. So that's another thing that's going on. They just override it, right? And another thing with these type of men who lack integrity, they lack moral accountability. Some men may only feel guilty when the consequences hit, right? So this distorted sense of guilt and shame is only coming up when they get exposed, right? They feel guilty when they lose something, when they lose you, right? They feel remorse when access is denied or you threaten them. You know, if they don't lose you or they don't lose anything, they don't reflect. They only feel guilty if you pull away, if you stay silent, if you break up. Otherwise, they just keep trying to get away with their bad behavior because they want to feel comfortable and they want to get their own way, right? So, at the end of the day, whether a man lacks integrity because he can't feel guilty, or he feel a flicker of shame, or because he choose not to listen to it, it doesn't matter what's going on with him. The outcome is the same. You suffer while he stay comfortable, right? Integrity is not taught through you having patience and you trying to teach and repeat yourself, explaining yourself over and over, right? It's not taught through waiting on change. Integrity is, it's revealed over time. It's revealed through consistent action. Doing the right thing every time is having integrity. And when somebody a man show you that he doesn't have integrity, he doesn't have moral accountability, you shouldn't try to fix them and instill these values. You don't need to harden your heart either. You don't need to lower your standards because a man lacks integrity. Or you don't need to accept emotional laziness or accept emotional crumbs, right? So it's just a lack of capacity to feel remorse, a lack of capacity to feel guilty and shame, and that's from their childhood and how their upbringing, right? As a woman, you need self-respect to choose yourself, and that means walking away. Most of the time, you just need to walk away. So that's the end of this video. I was explaining why men lack integrity and why they lack moral accountability. So this video have 2 parts. You could click on the first part if you just started to watch part 2. Okay, so like the video and subscribe if you want to, and see you in the next video.